Hi, everyone. My name is Noah Sanders. On behalf of Litquake, thank you all so much for coming to the very first event of Lit Crawl San Francisco. Tonight is the closing event of Litquake, San Francisco's long-running literary festival, and we are in the midst of a virtual Lit Crawl, which is running from 10:30 this morning to 10:30 this evening with 25 events, broadcasting from 7 cities around the world. This is a nonprofit event and is nearly 100% free and could not exist without the generosity of our individual donors. If you believe in keeping literature a key component of San Francisco's cultural landscape, please consider dropping us a few dollars. Every bit helps. We accept donations on Venmo at Litquake, on PayPal at info@litquake.org, or directly at litquake.org. After the event, you'll be asked to fill out a short survey. Please do. These surveys are very essential to our efforts to keep LitCrawl free. And now, our event, the debut review. I'd like to introduce the host for the evening, Elizabeth Gonzalez James.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is the debut review, and we're going to hear some amazing writing from some debut authors. Thank you, Noah, for introducing us. Thank you, Litquake, for hosting us. Please do donate at litquake.org. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you so much to our participants. First up, we have Alia Volts. She is the author of Home Baked, My Mom, Marijuana and the Stoning of San Francisco, winner of the 2020 Golden Poppy Award for Nonfiction from the California Independent Booksellers Alliance. Her work has appeared in The Best American Essays, The New York Times, Bon Appetit, Guernica, The Best Women's Travel Writing, and many other publications. Her unusual family story has been featured on Snap Judgment, Criminal, and NPR's Fresh Air. And take it away, Alia.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and I'm really happy to be here. I mean, I wish we were all out crawling from bar to bar, but I'm just going to do my own part at home. Cheers, everybody. I was going to read something kind of serious, kind of heavy to show the breadth of the book, and instead I'm going to read something completely ridiculous and a little bit raunchy because, I don't know, it's lit crawl, right? That's what we do. We have fun. So we'll see how this goes over, or not, because I can't see your faces. That's even better. All right, so this is from kind of the midpoint through the book. This book is about my folks had the first high volume cannabis edibles business in San Francisco, which started in the frothy disco 70s and then evolved into the dawn of medical marijuana during the AIDS crisis. So I was going to read something depressing, but let's do silly instead. My mom and I are stretched out on the barge. This is my mom's bed. We call it the barge. At her current home in Desert Hot Springs, California, a sand-choked suburb beyond the artificial green of the Palm Springs golf courses. She's a full-time artist now, living on the sales of her paintings and commissioned portraits and teaching art to at-risk youth and wealthy retirees. I've flown down from San Francisco for an art opening at a gallery in the posh part of Palm Springs. At 69, my mom is strong, though her lifestyle has taken a toll. Diabetes, Hep C, high cholesterol. She's waiting for surgery to repair a torn rotator cuff and props herself uncomfortably on pillows piled on the barge. It's 118 degrees and gusty, so we're hiding indoors. I've dragged a box of memorabilia from the garage. It holds photos, clippings, and old drawings, a hodgepodge of stuff from various decades. Nothing's labeled, no logic. My mom has always poo-pooed organization as bourgeois. I find an envelope postmarked February 1977. It's addressed to Meredy Domnitz, my mom, care of her brother in New Jersey, from Douglas Volts in San Francisco. Doug is my dad. What's this? I ask. She scrunches her face. Maybe a love letter? You're kidding. I can't bend my father's voice into the shape of a love letter. Open it and see, she says. This is how we are, how we've always been, no secrets from each other. As I extract the single typed sheet from the envelope, a Polaroid photograph falls onto my lap. A selfie of sorts. My dad stands reflected in a full-length mirror, bulky camera obscuring his face. Stark nude, enormous pink erection. I scream, brush the Polaroid off my lap like it's a spider, scream again. What is it? My mom demands. I hand her the photo. She screams. My dad sent my mom a dick pic. I'm simultaneously laughing and crying in actual hysterics. The letter, single-spaced in tiny font, covers one full page with scribbles in the margins. Read it, she wheezes. Read it out loud. I need a drink for this. I stagger to the kitchen to pour myself a mostly vodka Greyhound. Tumbler in hand, I return to my mom's bedroom, stand at the foot of the barge, and begin. It's raunchy. 70s porn starring my parents. Choice phrases include throbbing, aching cock, rod of power, and drink your love juices. I read the letter in a mechanical monotone while my mom giggles so hard her breath shrinks to a squeak. I want to F you. I want to F you on the floor of the men's bathroom on the top floor of the Hyatt Regency, I intone. I want to rape you in the fields of southern France between the shafts of wheat, raped by my shaft of heat. The phrase, I love you, appears 53 times. There are 3 more letters in the box, all postmarked between January 27th and February 11th, 1977. Only the first one is pure smut. Mostly, they're terribly romantic. I don't really want to say anything besides the fact that I am beside myself with love for you, he writes. Interesting picture. I mean, what else matters? You are there or here. I am here or there. There is no space or time. I'm just going to skip to the end of the chapter. These letters send me spinning. It's obvious that my parents were in the flip out stage of falling in love and that this level of intensity couldn't last forever. But I consumed their words greedily with an unexpected thirst. True, their marriage didn't make it through the 80s, much less transcend time. I was raised in a broken home by a single mother and a mostly absent father. The magic turned out to be fleeting, while the bitterness lasted decades. This is all true, but so are these letters, this perfect love. I know that with this trust, we won't fail each other, my mom wrote. She was wrong. They would fail each other again and again. But I know now that I was born of delirious, audacious love. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I loved it. All right. Next up, Shelley Blanton-Stroud is the debut author of the historical thriller Copy Boy. Shelley leaned hard into her family's Dust Bowl history, setting parts of her book in the 1930s Hooverville tent site and federal labor camp her protagonist Jane escapes for San Francisco, following the same escape route Shelley's parents took. She's working on a second book, but in the meantime teaches college writing at Sacramento State and consults with writers in the energy industry. She co-directs Stories on Stage Sacramento and serves on the advisory board of 916 Inc., an arts-based creative writing nonprofit for children. Take it away, Shelley.
Excuse me, thank you. I'm super bummed right now because I wrote this book that came out of my parents' stories, and right now I'm realizing my parents are nothing like Alia's parents, so dang. Anyhow, let me go here. Mama had always said Jane was going to do something. Not that she was something, but that she was going to do something. Mama never said what that something might be, but still it's shown in the distance like Jane's North Star. Growing up, whenever she brought home a B+ in English or a science fair ribbon, her raised eyebrows would ask, "Is this it? Is this the thing I'm gonna do?" Mama's silence was the answer. "That ain't it." So Jane would fold up her achievement, file it in her hope chest, one more artifact in the historical record of not quite yet. Though Jane didn't know what she was going to do, she did know why she had to keep trying. Jane owed Mama. Her supposedly 10-pound, 22-inch body had ripped Mama open at birth, taking so long in the push-out before her brother Benjamin that she had blocked him from pushing out at all. Daddy wasn't there when this happened. Mama said Granny had to pull Benjamin out, rough, with tongs. Selfish from the outset, Mama said about Jane. She said Benjamin had been born blue and never cried once before they buried him behind Granny's place, and he became spirit, a stream of particles charged like light. Jane would often think about the magic or physics of that, and it worried her, though the story did make them special, and she liked that. From her birthday tear, Mama developed an infection that almost killed her, and when she was out of her mind with pain and grief, passing in and out of consciousness, she suckled Jane the offender, too big for her womb, as if it were her greatest calling, passing that virulent secretion into her daughter, so that the incident and what it seemed to mean became a part of her. The two of them surprised everybody by living. That's why Jane owed Mama. Now, at 15, she still hadn't cleared the account, though she tried in 1,000 off-target ways. No matter what mile time or exemplary attendance record she brought home, Mama found fault. Who got first? Perfect record of bootlicking. Mama kicked her ass and waited for thank you. Daddy seemed to like her better, but not enough so to counteract the Mama effect. He was insufficient for that. His strengths lay elsewhere. Mama used to tell Jane stories about it in their tent. Your Uncle Arthur drove us from Bonham over to Paris, Texas, to watch baseball. We was sitting in the stands, all those folks hollering and cheering and drinking beer. But the only thing I could see was your daddy. Such a handsome man, slick and strong, like a new truck. She put a piece of watermelon in her mouth and licked a red bit off her finger. Even in the dark, you could see she was beautiful. Her heart-shaped face, her heavy, arched brows. Watching him out there, she sighed, shook her head. And then his voice. After the game, he come on over to us in the stand, picked up another fellow's guitar and started to sing. You remember this one? Will you miss me when I'm gone? She sang it low, like a complaint, making Jane's eyes water. I could see he was doing it just for me, charged straight through me. She needed the skin over her heart. Your daddy had a certain kind of power. Still has it, Jane thought. Wasn't no stopping it. We made you and your brother God's greatest blessings, no matter I was just the age you are now. Mama had delivered 2 babies, buried one when she was just 15. But you know what, Jane? Your daddy don't have that power over me no more. Power I need now? Electricity. I need a man who can turn on the lights. That wasn't Daddy. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks.
All right, next up, Kate Milliken is the author of the Iowa Award-winning collection of stories, If I'd Known You Were Coming, and her debut novel, Kept Animals, an LGBTQ coming-of-age story set in 1990s California, was released by Scribner Books in April of this year. Thank you, Kate. Go ahead.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for putting all of this together. I'm going to read, this is mostly a California novel, but I'm actually going to read from one of the chapters that takes place in Wyoming. I'm sticking with the mother-daughter themes here. This is a multi-generational mother-daughter story. So this is Little Snake, Wyoming, May 3rd, 2015. Most of the roads around here run straight and flat, no blind spots to speak of, with everything there is to see visible from a half-mile out. But when you turn off I-70 and head up Savory North, our place briefly appears as if pressed up against Battle Mountain. A trick of the eye, a deceitful compression of distance that reveals itself as soon as the pavement stops and you head up our dirt road. The mountain falls away and the house, the 2 barns, the old homestead cabin rise up against the backdrop of the foothills, swelling and spreading as if the land beneath were taking a big, deep breath. That's how Mama describes it anyway, how it looks to her when she's coming home, returned to us from wherever she's been, never wanting help with her bags, each one weighed down with her beloved cameras. For me, the thing worth noticing about our acreage in the Little Snake River Valley isn't the trickling clear water of the creek or the blooms of lupine that paint the foothills purple all spring, but rather a fact that without the balsa wood sign I hand-carved as a 12-year-old girl could easily go unnoticed. My sign sits at the peak of the foothill directly behind the house, and it reads, "Put 1 foot to the west and 1 foot to the east, and you will be a bridge over the Great Continental Divide." When I first staked that sign, I talked my granddad Gus into coming up the hill to see it, and he stood there rubbing at his bad leg, then snorted, "You will be a bridge? Could have just called it what it is, saved yourself some injuries there." The 2 of us looked at my bandaged hand. That sign had taken me a year of afternoons and nearly as many bloodied fingers, but I hadn't taken the project on as anything to do so much as something I could do on my own. It was his sister, my great Aunt Joy, who first told me about the Continental Divide, how it touched the edge of our backyard. And she was the only one that I took up there to see it who followed my sign's instructions to the letter. Putting 1 foot left, her other wide to the right. She set her hands on her hips, then her headscarf snapping in the breeze, her eyes mischievous but her voice deadly serious. "It's right here, Charlie, that a girl can take a piss in 2 oceans at once." Aunt Joy gave me the biggest laughs I ever knew, but she also said it wasn't her place to answer my questions. Everybody says I was born asking questions. Chatty Charlie, Granddad called me. School was a 30-minute bus ride into Bags, population 423, but by the 6th grade, not a single teacher had thought to mention the Continental Divide, so what else wasn't I being told? I'd been particularly displeased with school that year. Day 1, we'd been assigned a family tree, and there was nobody in my house who could help me make mine look like anything but a stick, while everyone else had branches like a cottonwood, twiggy with lines back to the first homesteaders, and everyone except me, that is, turned out to be a 5th fucking cousin to Butch Cassidy or the Sundance Kid. In all my life, I'd never lived anywhere else, had hardly ever been anywhere else, but that year I understood I was an outsider. Maybe 12 is just a bad year as years go, but by the time school let out, I had shot up 3 inches, and when Mama came home, she was looking up at me like I was someone she hadn't been expecting. I started slouching, trying to hide my changing chest. Its resemblance to the teats of our collie was a daily horror to me. And the worst wasn't even the bleeding when it began. It was my voice, the new rumble of it in my throat, the way it came out silly from my mouth. I didn't want to know the woman it was inviting in. We run a breeding barn of 7 brood mares, 1 stallion, and a goat we keep as a comfort animal for the mares when they're in labor. When a brood mare gives birth to a foal, we don't say that foal was born, we say it was thrown. 4 to 6 months after a brood mare throws that foal, we wean it from her milk, making it reliant on us, on the human hand, for feed. And when that trust is well established, when that foal's a yearling, we break it in, making it an animal in our service. I suppose the year I turned 12 was the year I was broken in. I stopped talking so damn much, and I gave in to what this ranch needed of me. I rose early and worked late, completing any and all manual labor without complaint, listening more than whistling. That was how Aunt Joy put it. I wanted to be of use, to her especially, but I also hoped the work would keep me lean, even sinewy like she'd always been. I didn't know then that we weren't blood. I wouldn't know that until after she was dead and gone. I forked stalls in the morning, helped with the feed before feeding myself, and after school, I brought the cattle in from the hills and brushed out the mares. I watched and learned when Joy was working with a foal, and what time remained, I worked on my balsa wood sign, sitting on the porch of the old homestead cabin, only going in when the first frost came. Inside, the sound of my knife scoring that wood mixed with the patter of mice in the rafters, their footpaths, the lacework above me, the musk of their feces and Mama's old chemicals for film developing, mixing in the air. Aunt Joy would come and look in on me the same way she'd checked on the foals at night, making sure a wilier animal hadn't come through hungry. I remember missing Mama more that year than I have any other. But that was 10 years ago, and I'm no kid anymore.
Thank you, Kate. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, and finally we have me, and I'll just read my bio in third person like it's not me reading about myself. Elizabeth Gonzalez James's stories and essays have appeared in the Idaho Review, the Rumpus, Plowshares blog, Pank, and elsewhere, and have received numerous Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominations. Her debut novel, Mona at Sea, was a finalist in the 2019 SFWP Literary Awards, judged by Carmen Maria Machado, and is forthcoming in July 2021. And here it is. Okay. This is January 2009, so this is during the Great Recession. Far in a back corner of the restaurant, partially hidden behind a wall of tinned olives, is a sign that reads Job Hobnob, Hob-Knob. And I wonder how I'm supposed to get help finding a job from people who can't even spell the word hobnob. It's a networking mixer, a cattle call of the dispossessed, lured by free appetizers and a reason to put on pants, and a necessary evil born in the bowels of economic desperation. My brother follows me inside and, spotting a different tangerine-skinned hostess he knows from school, leans up against the bar stand and flirts, leaving me to scan the room and anxiously tug at the hem of my skirt. I didn't want Danny to come, but my mother insisted, perhaps believing his charisma would rub off on me, that I could be cool by association. Come on, I say to Danny, and march across the restaurant, imagining the pitying looks I must be getting from the other gainfully employed diners. I'm given a name tag and a reassurance that things will pick up after the Wildcats finish. The crowd is thin. In 5 minutes, I've introduced myself to everyone, eaten several handfuls of calamari, and listened to 3 different pitches from insurance carriers looking for new franchisees. You find a job yet? Danny asks, eyes on the basketball game on a TV above the bar. Well, I say, I've got several people eager to give me my own insurance brokerage for the low, low rate of $60,000 up front. The calamari's good though, he says. Did you find a job yet? I ask, a little afraid the answer might be yes. Danny looks at me over his Jack and Coke, eyebrows raised. Of course, he didn't even try to network, and why should he? Danny convinced our high school to build a hot tub in the natatorium. Did you call that chick, Danny asks, about the telemarketing job? No, I say, indignant, and I'm not going to. A job's a job, he says, still watching the game. Yeah, and the first rule of the tautology club is the first rule of the tautology club. I sit down at a table and pull my pinched toes out of my Cole Haans. A man in a leather cowboy hat walks by and starts chatting up a short, defeated-looking ex-software engineer. They finish, and Cowboy Hat ignores me because we've met before, twice, at other networking events. He sells used office furniture and comes to these things looking for leads on companies that are laying off. A thin, gray-haired French woman in a fraying sweater nods at me and moves on as well. I've met her before, too. She has cases of diet pills in the trunk of her car and is looking for some sucker to buy into her exciting new direct selling opportunity. These are the remoras, siphoning off the leftovers of our crumbling economy. The room fills eventually, men and women with hunched shoulders who go through the routine of handshakes and business card exchange, but it's all futile. Everyone is unemployed. How do you get a job? By speaking to a bunch of other unemployed people. I'm mingling again, listening to a woman tell me her idea for a new frozen yogurt parlor / belly dance studio, when I hear my name and turn around to see Paulette and Randy waving and smiling. Paulette appears to have forgotten my outburst from the other morning because, as usual, she seems genuinely thrilled to see me. What a great turnout, she says. I nod and try to think of a way to apologize when Paulette is tapped on the shoulder and excuses herself. Randy's in good spirits. His tie has a picture of a grinning fish on it. Kiss my bass scrawled underneath. He's rocking back and forth on his feet and telling me a rousing tale about being bitten by a rattlesnake when I spy Paulette being chatted up by the French woman. And I can't explain whether it's out of guilt over how I've treated her or because I'm discovering that her desire for what's best for me is actually mutual. But when I see Paulette, her hair a Dorito-colored halo atop her sainted head, I know I have to save her from suffering financial ruin at the hands of this scheming continental. I wonder if this makes me a hero. Oh, hell no, I say, excusing myself and pushing through the crowd to where they're standing. The woman is crouched over Paulette like a vulture getting ready to tear open a carcass. As I approach, Paulette is asking if the woman accepts personal checks. She's not interested, I say, as Paulette sputters and looks confused. The French woman turns and glares. The whites of her eyes are yellowed. The muscles in her face are visible under taut gray skin, and I can imagine that, like a vulture, she spent her life surviving on scraps. You're very rude, the French woman says, and attempts to maneuver around me and continue her drug sale. It's a scam, I tell Paulette, physically blocking her from the French woman. It's a pyramid scheme. She's trying to take your money. No, Paulette says, but I can see my words sink in as she knits her brows. These are European. They're the fastest growing herbal supplements in France, and it's all women selling to women. I can take them to my church group. You are police? The French woman asks, poking a bony, bejeweled finger into my sternum. FDA? No? Then fuck off. Okay, Paulette says, smiling nervously and holding out her hands to separate us. We don't need to get heated. You're a leech, I say to the woman, pushing her finger aside, aware I'm raising my voice and attracting an audience. You prey on these people because they're desperate and they have no other options. And to sell diet pills, it's an unregulated industry. There could be crack cocaine and horse shit in there. Her face is venom. Her arms fold up against her black sweater and she shrivels before me. You're a bad person, I say. I spot the man in the leather cowboy hat watching me and point to him. And so are you. Danny is already heading for the door, no doubt trying to distance himself from his crazy sister. I take one last look at my captive audience and, deciding I've already burned the bridge, point to the sign above my head and add, you misspelled hobnob. That's Amore pipes into the parking lot, and I wish I'd had a chance to eat more before leaving. Danny is waiting under a street light, his arms crossed. Are you happy, he asks. You looked like a psycho. Oh, well, I say, now everyone knows. The restaurant door opens and Randy and Paulette come out. Mona, Paulette shouts, though I'm only 10 feet away from her. She runs up and hugs me, and though her frizzy hair is smothering my face and making it hard for me to breathe, I allow the embrace to continue. That was such a sweet thing to do, she says, her hands still on my arms. Thank you so much for looking out for me. You were right. It was possibly a scam, definitely a scam, I correct her. It was probably a scam, she concedes, but I wanted to let you know I appreciate the gesture. She pauses a moment before she says, you remind me of my daughter, very oppositional. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to respond, so I just mumble goodnight. I'm walking to the car when I hear Paulette call out, you're a good person. I wave goodbye and close the door before the moment can get any more saccharine, before anyone can notice the blush I feel creeping up my cheeks. Fortunately, Danny rescues me by smirking and saying, you're my hero, Mona. And I look at my reflection in the car window and smile just a little bit, just for me. All right, thank you everybody for coming. And please, if you want to support the literary arts in the Bay Area, go to litquake.org and drop a donation. And thank you all so much for coming, and please stick around for all the other amazing events happening. Bye.
Fill out your surveys. Fill out your surveys. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Stay online. Bye.